Hey guys, it's Morgan, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 favorite books that I read in the year of 2017. I read 50 books in 6.5 months. The first 5.5 I didn't really read anything. And out of those 50 books, I gave 11 of them 5 stars. And then out of those 11, I picked 5. So none of these are really set, except for number 1. That is absolutely my all-time favorite book, not just of this year, but ever. And so I own 4 of these books, so I'm going to start with the one I don't own. It is Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. So if you don't know what Eliza and Her Monsters is about, it's about this girl named Eliza who has an online webcomic, and she's extremely famous for it. She has hundreds of thousands of followers who read it every week, and she's an anonymous writer, so nobody knows who she actually is. And so that's kind of her online life. In reality, she is a loner. She doesn't have any friends. She eats alone at school. She draws for her comic. That's kind of her life, is her comic. And she does have 2 younger brothers, but she's alone. She does her comic, and that's what she does. Well, one day, this new kid moves to school, and she finds out that he is the most popular fan fiction writer of her comic. And so she knows who he is, but he does not know who she is. And they kind of become friends. And lots of things happen from there. She kind of starts to come out of her shell, and lots of other crazy stuff happens. And it was just a great book. So it was a contemporary book, and I believe it's the first contemporary book I've ever read. I decided when I started my channel I wanted to expand into other genres, because I basically exclusively read science fiction, fantasy, with a little bit of supernatural in there, and then a couple just regular fiction books. And so I don't really read a lot in terms of genre. So I decided that I would like to try a contemporary, and I decided that this one sounded good. So I read it, and I absolutely loved it. I wish I owned a copy of it. I don't. I will soon, I promise. You'll see a book haul with it in there very soon in the next year. So number 4-ish is a series, but I don't have the other books. I'm just going to hold this one up. It's The Knife of Never Letting Go, or the Chaos Walking trilogy. I love all 3 of the books. I think I'd have to say my favorite is the 3rd one, but I lent them out, so I don't currently have them. If you don't know what the Chaos Walking trilogy is about, it follows a kid named Todd, who is an orphan, and he also lives on a planet called New World. He does not live on planet Earth. And the town he lives in, there are no women, which is another very odd thing. I think there's less than 50 people in this town, 48 or something, and he is also the youngest. He's about to turn 13, he has a month left. They also have 13 months in a year, so he would already have been 13 if he lived here, but he's not. When you turn 13, you become a man, you kind of go through this ceremony, hazing, prove yourself kind of thing, and all the other boys have gone through it, and they are not friends with him anymore. They were friends before, but once they turned into a man, they shunned him. So he was alone, and he lives in this town, and also everyone can hear everybody else's thoughts, including the animals. So they call it noise. And one day he finds a girl in the swamp that is near their town, and crazy things happen because this town has a scary, scary secret. And on his way back through town, it kind of slips out, and some people hear it, and when he gets home, his adoptive parents, Ben and Kenyon, who raised him from a baby, hear it and tell him, take this bag and run for your life because you are in danger. So he takes the bag and he runs. And that is the beginning of this book. And this is a big book. There are 2 other books. They total like 1,500 pages or something. They're a lot. But it's just so different. It's nothing I've ever read before. That's one thing I can say about Patrick Ness. I've read this series and More Than This by him. Although I didn't really like More Than This, it was so different. I'd never read anything like that. I'd never really seen any media like that. And it's crazy to me that he just has these great ideas. So that is one thing I really, really liked about this book. One thing that I know a lot of people don't like about this book is the misspellings and the words. So the narrator is Todd. It's in his perspective, and he's illiterate. He can't really read. So everything is spelled the way it sounds. So anything ending in T-I-O-N with the shun sound is S-H-U-N. And so on and so forth for words that don't sound like they're spelled. And so that bugged a lot of people. it did not bother me. I feel like it gave the book more depth, and it was just great. So, the Chaos Walking series, I love the series. Another thing, it's being adapted into movies. Super excited about that. A little nervous, but still super excited. The next book I would like to talk about is The Meek by J.D. Palmer. So, I live in Montana, and J.D. Palmer is from a town 7 miles away from my town. And the main character of this book is also from that town. Which, I've never read a book from an author that was from this area, and that made it even better than it was. Anyway, this is a post-apocalyptic book. It is supposed to be a series. I'm not sure if it's a trilogy or not. But it's about this post-apocalyptic world. It follows this kid named Harlan, and he is visiting a friend in LA away from home, and the apocalypse happens. Everybody kind of just drops dead, and he doesn't. He's still alive, and he's alone. And then one day, a couple weeks or a couple months after the apocalypse, he runs across a person. And against his better judgment, he reveals himself to this person. And this person turns out to be a very, very bad person, and he kind of takes Harlan captive. And he ends up meeting this woman that he is a captive with, and they end up kind of working together, and that's kind of how the book starts. And it is a very graphic book. There's violence and rape and lots of language, and it's a very graphic book. It's not what I expected when I read it. It was like, wow, okay. Like, it almost makes me think it is not a young adult book, but it was good. I do watch The Walking Dead with my parents, and that is a very graphic show. But I feel like if you're at the end of the apocalypse and everybody's killing everybody for food, it's kind of necessary to protect yourself in certain ways. And so, that's one of the things I really liked about this book. The other thing I really like about this book is the cover. It's so pretty and simple. I love the little skyline down there at the bottom. But this book was just really good. I really, really liked it. It was great. I can't wait for the next one, because I just can't. Anyway, moving on. The next book I want to talk about is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This is a very popular book. I've been hearing a lot of things about this series and Leigh Bardugo herself, and I decided that I wanted to read the Six of Crows duology, but I was told that if I wanted to read this trilogy, I should read it first, because some things are revealed in the duology about this trilogy. And so I got this one, and I read it, and it was fantastic. Fantastic. And this is an adult book, so I've expanded from YA to adult books. I've read 2 this year. 2 adult books versus 48 YA books. Anyway, if you don't know what this is about, this takes place in the Grishaverse, which is a universe where there are people called Grisha. They are kind of like sorcerers. I want to say they have these powers, I can't remember what they're called. But it follows this girl named Elena. Sorry, I can't even remember the books I read. And she's an orphan raised with this other orphan, I can't remember his name, and they are tested. All children are tested to determine if they are a Grisha or not. And she's tested, he's tested, they're both determined that they're not. Well, they grow up and they join the army. There's kind of a war going on between the kingdoms, and there's also a thing called a Shadowfold. It is basically a tear in their kingdom. It's dark, there's monsters in there, and it's in the middle of the kingdom. So to get to from one side to the other, you either have to go all the way around, which could take months, or go through it, which could cost your life. And so her and her friend that she grew up with are chosen to cross this Shadowfold, and when they are crossing it, they are attacked by these monsters, and her friend is almost killed, and she unleashes a power. She is a Grisha, and she turns out to be very powerful, and they take her to the castle, they train her as a Grisha, and there's lots of crazy cool elements in this book. There's lots of different kinds of powers, and it was just good. It was like the world building was good, the characters were well developed, and it was just good. I just liked it. It was great. Anyway, next book. The last book, my all-time favorite book ever, is Infinity by Sherrilyn Kenyon. This book is tabbed, and this is the first book I've ever tabbed. The second book I'm tabbing right now is the second book in the series, which is my other favorite book. I've read the first 5 in this series. There's supposed to be 8. I think the 7th just came out. But I decided that after I read the 5th book, I wanted to just start over and reread them. And so that was a while ago. And so I reread this book this month. And let me just tell you, everybody should read this book. It is so good. So if you don't know what this series is about, it follows this kid named Nick who lives with his mother in a really run-down apartment. They're super poor. He does go to a very nice school. He passed the entrance exam with flying colors. He was a scholarship student. They live in New Orleans, so a lot of the kids who attend this school are extremely rich. And one day, he goes out with his friends to make some money. They will shoplift and stuff like that. And turns out his friends want to rob an old couple that are tourists. And he decides that he doesn't want to participate in something that bad. So he defends the old couple. His friends turn on him and nearly kill him. Well, he is saved by a dark hunter, a man named Kieran. Dark hunters are immortal beings who basically sell their soul to the goddess Artemis to protect humans from demons and vampires and zombies, like bad creatures. And he ends up working for this person, and he finds out some stuff about the supernatural and the preternatural that he didn't know existed, and it just is crazy. And it's so well written. Like, you can see all my tabs. Like, so good. I have so many tabs on this book. So amazing. Also, they are adapting this series into movies. So 3 out of the 5 books I have in the stack are being adapted into movies. Shadow and Bone is being adapted into movies, the trilogy. So that's really interesting. But yeah, amazing, amazing book. Everybody should read this series. It's so good. So that is it for my top 5 favorites of 2017. I can't wait to find some new favorites in 2018. And I hope you guys had some great reads this year and have some great reads in 2018. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!